1 Introduction. My name is Ella. I am a potter. I have a small studio on a quiet street in the city. I make many things from clay. I make bowls, cups, and vases with my hands. My hands are almost always covered in gray clay dust. I love my work very much. It is a creative life, but I work alone most of the time. This means I am often lonely. I work very late at night. The city is quiet when it is dark. I sit at my pottery wheel and shape the wet clay into new forms. Sometimes I need a break. I look up and look outside through my large glass window. Across the street from my studio is a big, expensive hotel. It is a very tall building with many bright lights. The street between my shop and the hotel is narrow. I can see clearly into the rooms on the second floor. There is a man who sits near his window every night. He is always wearing a serious black suit. He looks very professional. He sits there for a long time, but he never seems to be working. He looks very serious and very tired. I watch him sometimes when I clean my tools or wait for the oven to heat up. I wonder about his life. It looks like a lonely life inside that expensive room. He is clean and rich. I am covered in dirt and clay. We are very close in distance, but we are separated by the glass and by our different lives. I do not know his name, and he does not know mine. We share a silent connection across the narrow street. The atmosphere of the city at night is quiet and calm. I continue working on my art. I have many pieces to finish before the morning light appears. I put more clay on the wheel. It is just me, the clay, and the man across the street who watches the night pass. There is a great, silent distance between us. 2. The man in the rain. It was a Tuesday. The weather was bad. Rain fell hard on the big window. I was working late, as always. I was painting a small blue flower on a new bowl. My mind focused on the color. Suddenly, I felt cold. I felt a strange feeling. Someone was watching me closely. I stopped painting. I put my brush down. I looked up across the street at the expensive hotel. He was there. The man in the suit was standing. He stood right next to his window. The rain made the glass look wet. I could see his face clearly. We looked at each other. The street was narrow. The glass and the rain made it seem far. We stared for a long time. We did not move. It was quiet except for the sound of the rain. My heart started beating very quickly. He moved his arm. He raised his hand slowly. He placed his hand flat against the window glass. It was a simple action. I watched his palm press against the pane. It felt like he was trying to touch me through the wall. It was a secret message. I wanted to move my own hand, but I stayed still. I just watched him. After a minute, he took his hand away and sat down. This moment changed things. Now he was a connection. For the next weeks, this silent connection continued. It was our secret game. We did not speak, but we saw each other every night. I worked with my clay. I made cups and plates. I saw him sitting in his clean, perfect room. He watched me often. Sometimes he just looked out at the dark street. I thought about our two lives. His life was rich, but it looked very lonely. He wore expensive clothes, but he seemed trapped. He was always serious. My life was not rich. My studio was simple. My hands were dirty with clay, but I had my art. I chose to be alone to create. He seemed alone because he had no choice. We were two people in two different worlds. We were separated by glass, rain, and money. But every night we shared this quiet, strange understanding. I knew he was watching. He knew I was there. 3. A visit to the shop. The next day was a Wednesday. I was working on a large vase, painting the rim a dark brown color. Suddenly, the bell above the door made a soft sound. Ring, I looked up quickly. It was him. The man from the expensive hotel window was standing in my small shop. I felt very surprised. I did not expect this visit at all. He looked very tall in my small working space. He wore the same dark suit, but the shoulders of his jacket were wet from the rain outside. He smelled good, like expensive cologne mixed with the fresh, clean smell of the wet street. He looked around the studio slowly. I watched his eyes move across the shelves filled with my bowls and cups. He looked handsome and serious, just like he did when I saw him through the glass window. He walked closer to the counter where I stood. I felt nervous and my heart beat quickly. I looked down at my hands, which were dirty with gray clay. He smiled at me. His smile was warm and changed his serious face completely. He spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet and deep. "I see you every night," he said softly. "I watch you work very late." I did not know what to say back to him. I just nodded my head once. He continued, "You work harder than anyone I know, Ella." He knew my name. Hearing him say my name made my cheeks feel suddenly warm. He looked at a shelf near him where I kept my best pieces. He picked up a small blue cup. It was one of my newest designs. I reached out my hand to take the cup from him, perhaps to show him the bottom. Our fingers touched quickly. It was only for 1 second, but the feeling was very strong. My skin felt hot, like a sudden, unexpected fire. I pulled my hand back fast. The air in the room felt different now. It was heavy, full of energy, like electricity right before a big storm. We stood there quietly. We looked into each other's eyes, not speaking any more words. The silence was loud. This was the first time we were close, but it felt like we knew each other already from weeks of watching. He carefully put the blue cup back on the shelf. He did not buy anything. He just looked at me again, smiled a small smile, and turned to leave. The shop bell rang again as he walked out into the wet street. I touched my fingers where he had touched them, feeling the heat stay on my skin. 4. Tea and talk. Brian started to visit my studio every evening. It quickly became our quiet, secret time. He came right after he finished his long day of work. He always looked tired when he arrived, but a small, honest smile appeared when he saw me. He walked straight to the small wooden table in the back corner of the room. The first thing he did was loosen his expensive silk tie. He would then roll up the white sleeves of his shirt. He looked different when his tie was gone. He looked more like a normal man, less like the serious man across the street. We did not drink expensive coffee or fancy tea. We drank simple black tea from my practice cups. These cups were not perfect. They had small mistakes or uneven edges, but they felt true. They felt honest. We talked for 1 hour, sometimes 2 hours, before he had to leave and return to the hotel. Brian told me about his life. He said he felt very trapped. His family was extremely powerful and very rich. They controlled everything he did and everything he said. He had almost no freedom. He worked long hours at the family business, making big decisions he did not care about. He said his father told him who he must marry. He was expected to marry a woman from another rich family. This marriage was for business and for money, not for love or happiness. He leaned across the small table one evening, his voice low. "I feel completely free only when I am here, Ella," he whispered. "I can truly be myself with you." He looked deep into my eyes. This small, quiet studio was his secret place. It was very far away from the expensive hotel and his busy, controlled, and empty life. My romantic feelings for Brian grew stronger every single day. I loved listening to his stories. I loved watching him relax and forget his pressures. The strong tension between us was always there, like electricity in the air. I wanted to kiss him very much, but a big, heavy fear stopped me. We were very different. I was just a simple potter. My hands were always covered in gray clay. I wore a cheap, messy apron. He was like a prince in a tall, glass tower. He had expensive suits, power, and a famous family name. I worried about the enormous class difference between our lives. Could a man like him truly choose a woman like me? It felt very dangerous to have these deep feelings. I knew his family would never, ever accept me. I kept these heavy fears secret, locked inside my heart. 5 bad news. One morning, a man came to my shop. He wore a gray suit and looked very serious. He gave me a piece of paper. I took the paper and watched him walk away quickly. I looked at the words. It was an eviction notice. I felt a sudden coldness inside me. The paper said that my landlord was selling the building. A large hotel group wanted to buy the space. They planned to destroy my pottery studio. They needed the land to build a parking lot for the expensive hotel across the narrow street. My heart felt heavy and sick. This studio was my whole life. I spent years building my business here. I put the paper on the workbench. I tried to work, but I could not. The clay felt like heavy stone in my hands. All day, I felt nervous and angry. I waited for Brian. I needed him to be here. I thought he would share my anger about the rich people taking everything. Brian arrived that evening, just like he always did. He took off his wet coat and smiled at me. His smile did not reach my eyes. He saw the white paper immediately. It looked out of place among the tools and clay. He walked over and picked it up. He read the words slowly. His face lost all color. He looked down at the floor. He did not speak for a long moment. The air in the studio became very quiet. I waited for him to speak. I felt a terrible fear start in my stomach. "Ella," he whispered. His voice was low and shaky. "I know about this." I did not understand. "What do you know?" I asked. He slowly raised his head. His eyes looked sad and tired. "My family owns that hotel group," he confessed. "My father is the one doing this." I stood very still. The truth was like a slap in the face. My secret friend, the man who came here to escape his life, was part of the problem. But then he said something worse. "And he continued, speaking softly, "I am the one who signed the papers." I took 2 steps back from him. I felt dizzy. He was the enemy. The man I trusted was planning to destroy my life and my art. All the warmth and love I felt for him turned into cold shock. I felt completely betrayed by the man across the street. 6. The argument. I looked at Brian. I felt a terrible pain inside. I felt betrayed. He was the enemy now. I pointed to the door. "Get out," I said loudly. My voice was shaking very much. I could not stop the tears. They ran down my face like rain. I thought about the situation. This was a terrible scandal. Brian was a rich man. I was just a poor potter. If people knew he was here, it would be bad for his family. He was evicting me, but he was also my secret friend. His family would be very angry, but I was the one who was hurt the most. My heart felt broken. Brian stepped closer to me. "Ella, please listen," he begged. He looked very sad. He reached out and grabbed my wrists. His touch was gentle, but I pulled away quickly. I did not want him near me. "I did not know it was your shop," he said. "I swear I did not know. I only learned the truth 3 days ago." He looked down. "When I found out, I tried to stop the plan. I went to my father. I told him no." Brian's face was pale. "My father threatened me. He said he would take away all my money. He said he would cut me off completely." I shook my head hard. The choice was clear to me. He chose his comfortable life. He chose the money and the power. I chose my studio and my art. I chose the quiet life I loved. "You chose your money," I told him. My voice was cold now, not shaking. "I chose my art." "We are different people, Brian." He stood still for a long time. He looked defeated. He knew there was nothing more to say. He turned slowly toward the door. The studio felt suddenly empty and cold. I watched him walk away. He opened the door and stepped out into the dark, cold night. The door closed loudly behind him. I sank onto the floor next to the table. I sat there alone in the silence. I cried until my body hurt. I cried for the loss of my shop and the loss of him. 7, he comes back. After Brian left, the studio was very quiet. It felt cold, even though it was not winter. I sat on the floor for a long time. My heart hurt very much. I thought about all the good times we shared. I thought about the tea and the laughs. I thought about how he looked at me across the street. Now it was all gone. I could not believe he signed the papers to take my shop. I felt completely alone again. I waited. 1 hour passed. Then almost 2 hours passed. The rain outside was very loud against the large glass window. The city lights looked blurry through the water. Suddenly, there was a very loud knock on the door. It was not a polite knock. It was a fast, hard, desperate sound. I stood up quickly. Who could it be? I walked slowly to the door and looked through the small hole. It was Brian. He looked terrible. His expensive black suit was completely wet. Rain dripped from his hair and his jacket. He did not look like the rich man from the hotel anymore. He looked like a man who ran a long way in the storm. I opened the door quickly. He stepped inside. He was breathing heavily, trying to catch his breath. He looked right into my eyes. His eyes were dark and serious. "I quit," he said. His voice was low but strong. "I told my father that I will not work for him anymore. I told him to keep all his money." I did not speak. I just listened. He continued, "I cannot live that life. It is fake. I cannot destroy this shop. I cannot destroy you. You are the only thing that is real to me, Ella. I choose you." He took a step closer. Water made a small puddle on my wooden floor. We talked about the fight from 2 hours ago. We both said sorry. We agreed that the money did not matter as much as our connection. It was hard to leave his family, but Brian said it was harder to live a lie. He looked so much happier now that he had made his choice. I walked straight into his arms. He held me very tight. We did not care that his clothes were wet. We shared a long, long kiss. It was desperate because we thought we had lost each other, and now we were back. It was a kiss full of sadness and hope. We kissed until we had no breath left. He did not go back across the street to the luxury hotel. That night, he stayed with me. The studio was cold. We needed to be warm. I helped him take off his wet jacket. We pushed the old, heavy sofa closer to the small electric heater. It was not comfortable, but it was ours. I found 2 thick blankets. We lay down together on the sofa. We were close, listening to the rain fall outside. We whispered secrets to each other about our lives, our fears, and our dreams. We talked about his difficult father and my future as an artist. We stayed like that, safe and warm, until the morning light came through the large glass window. It was the best night of my life and the start of something new. 8. A new start. I woke up slowly. The sun was coming through the large window. I looked at Brian. He was sleeping next to me on the sofa. He looked very peaceful now. His face was soft. I watched him breathe for a long time. The fear that lived in my stomach was gone. It left during the night. The road ahead will be difficult. I knew this was true. We had many problems to solve. We might lose my studio building. The hotel group still wanted the land, but I did not feel afraid anymore. I felt strong. Brian was here with me. That was the most important thing. Brian gave up everything for me. He quit his family's business. He chose me over his father's money. That showed me how much he loved me. He was ready to start a new life. A life without his family's control. This new life would be hard work, but we would work together. He had some money saved. I had my talent for pottery. We had enough to begin again. I thought about the past few weeks. I learned many things about myself. I learned that I am very strong. I can fight for what I love. I learned that love is not easy. True love needs big risks. I took a risk when I let Brian into my life. He took a much bigger risk when he left his old life behind. We were ready for this new start. Brian opened his eyes. He smiled at me. His smile was tired but full of hope. "Good morning," he whispered. I smiled back. We got up from the sofa. We walked together across the room. We stopped at the large glass window. This window was where our story began. We looked out at the street. The hotel was still across the street, but now it was just a building. It did not mean separation anymore. Brian took my hand. He held it tight. Our hands fit perfectly together. I was no longer the lonely girl sitting alone with clay. We were two people starting a life. We were ready for everything. This was our new start.